Mr. Chip, give me more power from the warp core.
Aye, sir. Redistributing power. No good, sir. It's not enough.
Damn it, Mr. Chip, I need more power.
I'm giving it all she's got, Captain.
Oh, hey, the Pop-Tarts are ready. How you doing, everyone? It's your old pal Jim here, and we're coming to you with another Star Trek-type video game.
Whoa. Hold on there, boss. We're doing another Star Trek-related thing? Are you gonna be known in cyberspace as the Star Trek guy?
Ah, come on, Chip. I don't talk about Star Trek that much. Oh, okay, I do talk about it a lot, but so be it. It's like my favorite franchise, like tied with Ghostbusters. And besides, I owe an old friend this. I just gotta.
Okay. But don't come crying to me when people start blasting in the comment section with Star Trek quotes, and start insisting that you wear a red shirt.
Chip, please, at least put me in a blue shirt. Come on, science division all the way, baby. But anyways, now, dear viewer, it's time to go back in time to the distant year of 2003. We're talking about Star Trek Elite Force 2. Now, what am I doing traveling back in time all the way back there? Well, many moons ago, I reviewed the first game. About 6 years ago, in fact. The game was a fun romp through the setting of the TV show Star Trek Voyager. And from what I remember, aside from a bit of a difficulty curve here and there, I really had a great time. So, is this game gonna cut the proverbial mustard? Well, there's only one way to find out. I'm gonna go ahead and walk through the entirety of this game, just like the last one. I feel like it's old enough. Gonna save the vague reviews for more modern stuff that I encourage people to actually play, you know? Off the bat, I wanted to say that the game is gonna look a little, wonky. You see, it was a pain in the butt to run in any of the native resolutions, because, you know, it's a relic of a game. You know, 64 times 480, 800 times 600, 1024 times 768. It was wreaking havoc on my PC, man. It was nuts. So, I opted to go into the INI files and force it to run in my actual native resolution of 1920 times 1080. But because of that, the dialog boxes and other HUD elements are gonna look smaller than what they are actually, supposed to look like. But hey, consider that an incentive to get it yourself if you want to see it in its true, original pixelated glory. When the story starts, we find ourselves back on Voyager, and it seems as though we've been actually inserted right into the ending of the show, with Voyager being held captive within a Borg sphere. It's up to the head of the hazard team, Lieutenant Alexander Monroe, to lead his team deeper into the sphere to help get Voyager out. Whoa, wait a second. Where's Alexandria? You know, the female version of Alex. Because, in the first one, you were able to choose between the two and whatever flavor of story you wanted.
Sorry, boss. It looks like this time around, you only get to be Alexander. No player choices for us this time around.
Ah, boo. I was hoping to see Alexandria in New Age graphics. Ah, well. Anyway, Alex, Boolean engineering technician Chell, demolition specialist Austin Chang, and command officer Telsia Murphy are the team tasked with getting Voyager out of there. The initial first few levels ease the player into the game mechanics that may come into play in later levels. Things like hidden crawl spaces to get into access points that unlock blocked paths, and timed events that involved saving your fellow hazard team members from meeting a Borgy fate. We also get introduced to the tricorder function, which serves as a way to get through certain obstacles, like a force field blocking the way, or shutting down things like generators. I like that they even reenact the whole Voyager escaping scene and flying into the waiting fleet who's like right there ready to take down the sphere. All of this is apparently revealed to be a flashback sequence. Presumably, this is taking place well after Voyager made it back to Earth, because the main members of the Hazard team are meeting with a top Starfleet Academy official. One that doesn't seem to think that there's a need for a Hazard team. So much so that he decides to split the original team up and sending them into different, separate assignments. Apparently, it's silly to have a hazard team in modern-day Starfleet. I mean, sure, it was useful on Voyager since it was stranded in the Delta Quadrant, an unexplored region of space, but nah, not so much here. Modern starships don't need that in the Alpha Quadrant.
This guy is full of beans, isn't he?
Oh my god, he could be a whole bowl of chili, he's so full of beans. He also says precisely. A lot.
Precisely. 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 Precisely.
Hey yo, how about you get some real field experience instead of deciding on the future of what could be a real asset to Starfleet,
Precisely.
Tuvok stops by to visit Alex. The two exchange pleasantries, and once Alex explains his plight, Tuvok mentions that he will take the hazard team's case to his colleagues to see if anything can be done. He then goes off to his new assignment as well. Alex then meets up with Telsia, who tries to appeal the decision to Starfleet Command, with no luck. It seems the decision stays. She suggests a last-ditch effort for both she and Alex to resign from Starfleet, and this is where a new minor game mechanic is introduced. You actually get to choose what Alex says in certain situations. It doesn't change major outcomes, it's mostly just flavor text, to be honest. I mean, no matter what you choose, you'll end up with the same place and the same result for the most part. Some choices are received better than others, obviously. We then fast forward 2 years and are thrust into a mission consisting of Alex and Klingon Starfleet crewman Korban. It's a nice little twist in storytelling because even though Alex and Korban are fighting through hordes of Romulans, it's later revealed to be nothing more than a simulation. I mean, after all, Alex has been appointed as an instructor at the Academy. After the simulation was said and done, there was a surprise visit by none other than Captain Jean-Luc Picard. In fact, Captain Picard was mighty impressed with Alex's skill, and after learning about what the hazard team is, he enthusiastically decides that he wants Alex and his team for the illustrious Enterprise, much to the chagrin to that same Starfleet official.
Precisely.
Alex then picks out the original hazard team, along with some new faces from the Academy, to serve with him aboard the Enterprise. The Enterprise E, to be exact. Since this is supposed to be taking place around the last couple of TNG movies. Tuvok has taken temporary assignment as head of tactical while Lieutenant Commander Worf is on leave. Though depending on when and where in the timeline this takes place, I'm surprised they didn't just mention that he was off on assignment on Deep Space Nine. I mean, that's literally where he goes, after the movie Star Trek Generations, with the destruction of the Enterprise D. Speaking of which, let me go ahead and pause here for a second. I got a bit of a gripe with the game at this point.
Wait, you have a gripe already? But we just started.
Well, yeah, I know, but this almost feels like a downgrade from the last game.
Whoa! A downgrade? Really?
Yeah, really. I mean, okay, in a narrative sense. You see, the first Elite Force game features the entire cast of Voyager. Janeway, Chakotay, Tom, the Doctor, Harry, Neelix, B'Elanna, Seven. And yet here, on this massive Sovereign-class starship that carries the immortal name Enterprise, you kinda get nobody. I mean, you get Jean-Luc, of course, but you don't get to see anyone else on board that you've seen over the years. I mean, I imagine it would have been hella expensive to get everyone, and I guess timeline-wise it would be a little difficult, but I mean, come on, guys. I mean, at least get us the minor characters from the series to be on there. I mean, hell, you could have thrown in Dr. Pulaski or Ensign Sonia Gomez. I mean, she ended up as a captain in Lower Decks, I don't know. I guess it's just a personal gripe, really. I mean, it's just, you finally get to be on the Enterprise, and there's Jean-Luc Picard. And then that's it. I mean, we didn't even get a chance to get Worf. It's just, it just feels kind of empty when there's not too many familiar faces on board a ship you've kind of grown up with, Anyway, griping aside, Alex settles in and explores an entire deck that's been assigned to the hazard team, complete with armory, holodeck, locker room, and briefing room. After familiarizing himself with the area, he's summoned by Captain Picard to brief him on the readiness of the hazard team, when all of a sudden, the Enterprise detects an emergency transmission coming from the USS Dallas, an Excelsior-class ship. The same one that Sulu got to command once he got the rank of captain. It's also the same ship that Telsia got assigned to as head of security after everyone got split up, though now it seems that the alien forces have forced their way inside. They actually advise to stay away. Oh man, not every day you get a distress signal that pleads with people to actually stay away. Surely we'll be cautious on our approach.
Assemble the hazard team and tell them we are deploying them ahead of schedule. Take Ensign Franklin with you. He's an expert on Excelsior-class ship systems. I want your team ready for transport as soon as we reach the Dallas.
Aye, sir.
Oh, right, I forgot this was a shooty pew-pew game. We're gonna run in, warnings be damned. Upon arriving on the Dallas, the hazard team for this mission consists of Alex, Shell, Medical Officer Juliet Gerard, and Excelsior Starship expert Ensign Franklin. Franklin? Wait, who the heck is this guy?
There was a contest by Activision that was hosted by StarTrek.com back in 2006. The winner of the sweepstakes would have won a trip for 4 to Hollywood and a cameo appearance in a then upcoming new Activision game, which ended up being Star Trek Elite Force 2. That's the contest winner right there.
Oh, what? No fair! I would have loved to be in a video game.
But, boss, weren't you in that Planet Explorers game on Steam?
Well, yeah, but I voice an NPC, but you gotta be like level 30 before you even get to him. And I don't even know if I'm still in there. Plus, it's not Star Trek. Anyway, crush dreams aside, the hazard team beams aboard the ship, only to find floating corpses and holes on the side of the hull. Chell mentions that the residue kind of reminds him of saliva. Yeah, that's, not a good sign. Upon further inspection and a lot of horror-inspired cinematic shots, the team comes to find out that the Dallas is indeed in poor shape, with plasma fires blasting everywhere, large sections of the ship completely breached and sealed off with force fields. Oh, and, oh, right, the invaders. So these rocket-powered not xenomorphs show up out of nowhere and start accosting the hazard team as they try to push their way into engineering. And these violent little buggers can be a bit of a challenge to deal with, because I wasn't joking when I mentioned that they were rocket-powered. They literally have this seemingly built-in rocket on their backs that propel them forward to come at you, and if you're not careful, they can shove you right into environmental hazards. After losing the Excelsior-class specialist Franklin to a horror trope, hell of a cameo that was, the team find out more information when they push their way into the bridge. The captain of the Dallas leaves a final batch of logs. It seems as though they were answering a distress call from an alien species known as Atrexians. We'll find out more about them later. Apparently, the alien forces that were attacking the Dallas were well underway with attacking an Attrexian space station. It seems that both the space station and the Dallas were in dire straits, with the captain of the starship attempting to beam down a majority of the crew to help with the defense of the space station. A skeleton crew remained on board the Dallas to try to salvage what they could. Unfortunately, that fight was a losing one as the ship suffered cascading failures, ending with the ship losing complete power, including life support. They were completely overwhelmed by the sheer numbers being thrown at them. Man, are we treading on Warhammer numbers here?
Oh, boss, trust me, that's not where we want to go.
What are you, nuts? Of course not! I'm sure I'm conducting half a dozen heresies just by talking to you. Most of the skeleton crew on board the Dallas met a grisly fate, what with the environmental controls giving way. There does seem to be a little bit of hope, though. The chief engineer of the Dallas apparently did some sort of experimental procedure to hide in plain sight, hiding the surviving crew in a looping pattern buffer and... Well, okay, hang on a second. I really appreciate this. For those of you who don't recognize that method, it's exactly what Captain Montgomery Scott did in the TNG episode Relics, in order to save himself and a colleague while awaiting rescue, albeit in the episode the colleague really didn't make it. Thankfully, in this case, the surviving crew did in fact make it, old friend Telsia amongst the survivors. Not only that, we discover that the chief engineer of the Dallas is a relative of a legendary character we just mentioned a second ago. Great-granddaughter of Montgomery Scott, Katarina Scott. She used the very same procedure. Okay, I really like that. Good job, game. After getting the surviving crew out of there, there's a briefing with Captain Picard in the Enterprise E's observation lounge. Concerns and fears are confirmed as Katarina Scott and Telsia explain just how terrible these hostile aliens are. The Dallas was doomed the moment they started chewing their way in. It's then decided to follow up on the Attrexian space station since a majority of the Dallas crew were beamed over to assist with the distress call. I mean, if things were bad on the Dallas, just how bad can things be over there? Oh, jeez, I'm gonna go with pretty dang bad because, of course, the moment the Hazard team decides to split up when they enter the space station, those same alien creatures launch yet another offensive against them. The main difference now, though, is that you have a shotgun-type gun, opposed to the phaser rifle you had up until now. And it's around this time that I started to have a problem with the game. I mean, up until now, things were reasonably paced. I was able to catch my breath, get to some health/energy terminals, and regroup. However, it becomes painfully clear that the game had no plans of taking it easy on me, especially on a normal difficulty. You have to pay attention to your health bar and energy bar at all times, because otherwise you're going to run low on either one of them, and the game does not forgive. I mean, at least weapon-wise, you can resort to your phaser if you really need to, but unfortunately, once your health gets low, you're stuck with waiting to get to another health terminal before recovering at all. And if you get to a particular point with low health, you're going to find yourself dying over, and over, and over again. Thankfully, the game does save periodically, but I would go as far as making some manual saves too, just to save yourself on some frustrations in the event the last save puts you way back, or worst case scenario, you save with like 10 HP. Alex goes through the space station, helping out various Atrexians who are in all sorts of jams along the way until he finds the ones in charge. This initial meeting is cut short because those aliens are a knocking at the front door. Well, more like a wall, and they're bursting through it, but you get the idea. After the Hazard team defends the Atrexians in command, Alex inquires about where these invading aliens could have come from. And while the Atrexians can't really narrow things down, they do mention another alien species that they had given written text and warp travel tech to. Apparently considered by the Atrexians to be backwater kind of sort of species, which I think is kind of rude. I mean, we were all backwater at one point. They mentioned the alien race, the Idil. I mean, look at humans. We had to go through a whole post-apocalyptic nightmare before we were able to crawl out of it. You know, in Star Trek lore. But anyways, the alien species that we're talking about were called the Idil. Something to look into at a later date, but for now, it's time to get to the last remaining survivors of the Dallas, and to find an Attrexian engineer who can help with jury-rigging a solution to get the station's defense grid back online. Alex elects to go on this undertaking himself, commandeering some sort of transport within the station. All the while, a large and foreboding creature watches from the shadows and promptly sabotages his efforts. Rude! However, Alex does see a friendly face after all of that hullabaloo, in the form of Ensign Gonzalez from the Dallas. After getting the coordinates to the rest of the Dallas crew, Alex and Gonzalez go deeper into the station to find that engineer. With not-so-intuitive platforming and a heaping load of covering fire, the chief engineer is able to get the defensive systems back online to save the day! Not only that, but the medical team on the Enterprise was able to salvage one of the many bodies of the aliens that were attacking. No sentience per se, but they do tend to behave on instinct, sort of. That and a non-organic thing that was seemingly fused at the base of the cranial region. In other words, more questions than answers. Alex is then tasked to do some research on the Atrexians, as well as develop tactics specifically against the hostile aliens that were attacking. In which case, you have the option to do the research with or without Telsia. I don't think there's a difference on the outcome, so choose whatever feels good to you. After a bit of research, we sit in on a Hazard team briefing, whereas the source of all of these aliens is discovered, a planet located in Attrexian space. The Hazard team is tasked with beaming down there and investigating, especially because there's a particular location that the ship's sensors can't seem to penetrate. Once down on the planet, it's discovered that there's an Idil archaeological team already there, trying to do their own research. However, it's all come to a halt as the archaeologists lost contact with the team that went into the ruins. They then lost contact with a second security team that went down there after them. I mean, in this case, while investigating these ancient ruins, not only is the ruin overrun by those aliens that we were fighting earlier, it's also overridden by other bug-type aliens. Although they do get some funky neon colors going on, so that's kind of neat. Unfortunately, early on, it seems as though the security team that was sent after the archaeologists didn't quite make it. Hopefully, the archaeologists had a better fate. We're also introduced to 3 new game mechanics with the tricorder: detecting weak structures in order to avoid falling down into pits, detecting the sources of gases so that you can seal them up with your phaser, and detecting biosignatures, which let you see traps like lethal lightning rods that are otherwise invisible to the naked eye. Eventually, after traversing a majority of the facility, the hazard team actually encounters the initial archaeologist, and oh boy, howdy!
Alright, boss, keep it together. You've got a review to finish, remember?
Oh, right. Hey, can you blame me? That outfit is like... It's not even an outfit? It's like some cloth and string. Anyway, we meet Doctors Inigor and Clea, apparently Inigor being Clea's father. They are indeed the initial archaeological team that was delving into the ruins first, though they've been stuck there for several days. Come to find out that this is the exact facility where those aliens are apparently being made, and they're also called exomorphs. Very creative. Apparently, the facility can actually manufacture billions, if not trillions of them on demand immediately. Oh no. Alex says that they need to shut down the place due to the fact that the Idil have lost control of the exomorphs, hence all the senseless attacking and killing. They agree to shut down the facility, but they request that the hazard team save the third apparent scientist, Inigor's son and Clea's brother, Crendo, who is even deeper into the facility, because of course he is. Where else would he be? Alex goes it alone, and when he gets to Crendo, he too seems confused over the loss of control over the exomorphs as well. He says that it'll take 6 hours to shut down the facility, maybe 2. Monroe doesn't like that estimate and decides to shut it down the only way he knows how, by shooting it. We go back to the Enterprise, where a briefing is held with the new Idil guests. They explain that the exomorphs are supposed to be there for just heavy lifting and doing things that are like menial tasks and that sort of thing. They also accuse the Atrexians of forcibly upending any independent archaeological investigations that they try to do and actively oppress their people. Apparently, their research has evidence of Atrexians taking over ancient Idil colony worlds, a serious charge that Picard takes note of. He then instructs Alex to have a private talk with Clea, seeing as how she seems to be the most keen on being sympathetic to Starfleet's cause. After a little talk that can be extended to talking about each other's planets over at Astrometrics, Alex is summoned on the bridge just in time to see the tail end of failed negotiations.
Wait. Failed negotiations? With Captain Jean-Luc Picard?
Hey, I'm as surprised as you are. But I guess the Atrexians are more stubborn than we figured? Not only do they not want to do anything with the Idil who are on board the Enterprise, but they insist on destroying everything in the ruins. Basically, Captain Picard protests, being a bit of an archaeologist himself, saying, you're destroying priceless artifacts from a bygone era. This, of course, falls on deaf ears, as the Attrexian High Command simply bombards the planet and destroys the ruins with weapons fire, effectively destroying it and leaving a baffled Picard to get essentially hung up on. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there for a second. I'm not usually one to nitpick. Okay, I sometimes am, but look, this whole exchange just felt like not something Picard would put up with. Especially post-TNG mid-movies Picard.
What do you mean?
We're going to destroy the facility before anyone else is hurt.
Commander, that is a priceless archaeological site, not to mention a breakthrough technology. I strongly recommend...
It is our planet and our business. We appreciate your assistance, but you cannot dictate our policy. The facility is dangerous and must be destroyed.
We are reading antimatter explosions on Vioc Epsilon 5.
You can release the Idil. Our dead now have justice.
Destroying history is not justice.
Goodbye, Captain Picard.
Pursuant to paragraph 1290, I hereby formally request third-party arbitration of our dispute.
You have the right.
Furthermore, pursuant to subsection D3, I name the Grisellas to arbitrate.
Grisellas?
Unfortunately, they are currently in their hibernation cycle. However, they will awaken in 6 months, at which time we can get this matter settled. Now, do you want to wait? Or give me my 3 weeks?
Absurd. We carry the membership. We can brook no delay.
Then I hereby declare this treaty in abeyance.
Wait. Negotiation is permissible.
You enjoyed that. You're damned right.
Oh is right. That's one thing that's been kind of bothering me throughout this game. All of the elements of being in the Star Trek universe are there. Tricorders, starships, teleporters, you could even wander around the halls of the Enterprise E a little bit. But what it's seriously lacking is some half-decent writing. Anyways, they then proceed to let the Idil go, however not without Clea requesting to stay on board, much to the surprise of her father and the quite intense protests of her brother. Not to mention with Crindo telling us that we'll regret the decision for letting Clea stay. After they leave, the Dallas is repaired to the point of being able to travel through warp for extensive repairs elsewhere. The Enterprise receives yet another distress call from another Attrexian colony. As the Enterprise arrives at the colony's location, Idil ships also arrive shortly after. Suspicious. They contact the Enterprise saying that they'd be willing to send Idil down with the Hazard team. Well, golly gee, how nice of them. And here I was thinking they were gonna... Well, never mind. I suppose it was too much to hope for in an action game, but I gotta say, it's sort of killing me that they set up the scene the way they did. I mean, the Enterprise gets hit because they lowered their shields for transport. I get that. Totally understandable. An underhanded but very tried and true tactic, yes. But you're meaning to tell me that the Enterprise E, the Sovereign class Enterprise E, after getting hit with 2 direct hits off its port side, wouldn't have enough time to raise their shields for that second volley? I mean, come on, man, what are the strength of those weapons? That second volley was slow as molasses. Were things just time-lapsed? Were we meant to see them? Was that faster than the naked eye?
Whoa, calm down there, boss. You're losing yourself in the weeds. Come back to the light. We don't want to lose you just yet.
Alright. So the apparent mastermind for this whole plot is revealed to be none other than Crindo, stating that Picard took his most precious possession. Now Crindo was here to take Picard's. Is he referring to his sister? Yo, dude. You gotta ease back there, man. Lest you be treading on a certain vibe that may or may not have to do with the American state of Alabama. Moral quandaries aside, the Hazard team, along with the rest of the crew of the Enterprise, are tasked with repelling the hostile invaders as they board the ship. Because, it's disabled. Oh, hey, look, it's Lieutenant Barclay! An actual familiar face from, the old days of the Enterprise. I would ask where Geordi is, but we got bigger problems to deal with right now. Seems as though the latest attack has overheated the warp core, and we gotta eject it. Oh, man. Shax would have loved to be here for this. In fact, I think I really could have used Shax for this part, because the majority of this section is defending the warp core from further sabotage. all while hostiles try to beam in and shoot at you. Thankfully, Barkley helps out with his own phaser rifle, but it's up to you to specifically hit the saboteurs who are trying to plant charges on various spots of engineering. One too many blasts and it's curtains for the Enterprise. After successfully repelling the invaders from engineering, you have to use your tricorder on the energy distribution panel in order to help bleed energy away from the core. Well, you gotta be mindful of this part though, because if engineering sustained a lot of damage, you'll have less time to do that. Because it's not just bleeding energy away, you also have to enter a specific code to authorize the ejection. In one of my playthroughs, I had enough time to do the tricorder minigame, but not enough to enter the code. Man, some real irony right there. Once the core is launched, you can defend the bridge with Picard and are then tasked with removing devices that are attached to the hull of the Enterprise that are attempting to give complete control to the invaders. Afterwards, you're given access to one of the ship's auxiliary pulse phaser batteries. The power is still offline, but there's enough power to get them going for Alex to shoot them manually. Admittedly, a pretty cool section of the game. The Hazard team is then tasked with beaming down to the planet that initially made the distress call to help the Atrexians. This section of the game is filled with more or less the same thing. Finding exomorphs and helping out Atrexians as you come across them, fight even beefier exomorphs than what you're used to seeing, and deal with having to resort to more platforming using the Quake 3 Arena engine. It's not impossible, mind you, but it can get pretty frustrating at times. Let me just say, I'm really happy that they at least let you save wherever you want in the game. After clearing the colony of the alien menace, the Hazard team regroups aboard their shuttle and find out that it was Inigor, the Idil Elder, who was at the colony trying to help the Atrexians himself, despite his son Crindo's wishes. However, this puts the Elder Idil in a tough spot, seeing as how the attack by exomorphs doesn't seem to be letting up. It seems in a lapse of judgment, Inigor helped Crindo restart the exomorph facility despite the evidence of how destructive they could be. Yeah, cause that's a bright idea. Inigor insists he only did it so long as Crindo promised not to use them for evil, but lo and behold, he used them for evil. Wait, wasn't that place blasted before? Picard was chewed out and they were still able to get to it? Well, and apparently we needed new coordinates from Inigor to get to the new one that So he's at the new one, not the old one, even though I don't know. The Hazard team arrives at the designated coordinates, only to be blindsided by an electrical storm which knocks them right out of the sky. Everyone seems to be alright except for the shuttle pilot Sydney, who seems to have been injured during the crash. Alex opts to go it alone while keeping the rest of the team at the shuttle, where Klingon Ensign Korban, he got promoted, nice, good for him, raises a good point though.
Why do you always go off alone? The leaders should never take point.
Thanks. See you soon.
I think it's mostly due to the fact that Alex is the focal point of the story. The game wants him, or rather, you, the player, to go out and be the hero.
I mean, yeah, sure, I can get that, but at times it feels less like a team, and more like Alex is the Star Trek version of Dirty Harry or John McClane. Anywho, a lot of trudging through swamp areas here since the minimap isn't much help as far as guiding you through the open areas. We're also introduced to the Starfleet issue sniper rifle, something we're gonna need in this level because, seeing as how there's plenty of bad guys that are far enough to be away from standard weapon fire, but close enough to nail you with their own long-range weaponry. This level was a bit of a pain, because eventually you have to deal with baddies who have the equivalent of mortars, unleashing devastating, explosive long-range attacks that can quite literally kill you in 2 hits if you're not careful. I had to die a few times before I was able to pinpoint exactly where those troublemakers were. More Idril baddies, a bunch of hostile Loch Ness Monster-type creatures, and you finally get captured by 3 hostile Idril. I personally think that Alex could have totally taken on 3 after everything he's dealt with so far, but fair enough. Alex gets captured and taken to Crindo, who forces you to make a choice. Surrender Clea back to him, oddly possessive, sure, or refuse and state that Starfleet doesn't trade hostages. I chose the latter, of course, so if you want to see the other choice, perhaps you ought to play the game yourself, Alex tries to convince Crindo that his father is in an Attrexian colony trying to help the local populace against the invading exomorphs, But Crindo, of course, doesn't believe you. But just to prove his point that he knows his father isn't there, he's going to call him up and... yeah, he's there after all. What were the odds? After a sad and brief exchange between the two, it's discovered that Crindo is no longer in control over the exomorphs, again, and is unable to call them off despite his frantic efforts. The call with Inigor is soon over, and the elder Idil falls prey to the many exomorphs. After a bit of an emotional spiral, Alex convinces Crindo to help them put a stop to the facility. A little more platforming and a whole lot more shooting, and the both of them make their way deep inside the facility to initiate that self-destruct sequence. But of course, things aren't as simple as they seem. You see, there's a new kind of exomorph, one called a stalker, and it's got cloaking abilities and a whole lot of health. Blah. After those events, we go back aboard the Enterprise where Picard and Alex question Crindo, who resides in the brig due to his actions. Through some straightforward questioning, we find out that there's a master control facility, which is suspected to be the reason why the exomorphs ignored any additional commands from Crindo in that other facility. It apparently has the power to override any and all other facilities. We find out that a Ferengi arms trader by the name of Omag gave the Idil the funds needed to do their initial research in exchange for priceless artifacts that he can in turn sell. He was also the only other person other than Crindo himself and his father Inigor that knew about it, so suspecting that he must have deciphered the facility's location himself. Oh yeah, Omag, that one Ferengi from TNG Season 5, Episode 8, Unification 2. See, the game does an occasional deep cut that I understand. With a little bit of subterfuge, Picard has Crindo contact Omag from his ship, and they organize a meeting over at Space Station K7. While I don't know the current status of Deep Space K7 at this point in time of the timeline, the space station has always been portrayed as Starfleet related, or at least Starfleet adjacent. This K7 is being run by less than legal-minded individuals, and really doesn't strike me as the same starbase as the one we're used to. Which really confuses me, because why call it K7 if it's not gonna be...
Ahem. Don't get sidetracked, boss.
Alright, I got it. So this particular mission places all parties well out of transport and communication range due to the Enterprise needing to stay out of sight and mind for this to work. So the small team of Alex and Ensign Gonzalez is formed. You eventually go to a bar area and meet up with Omag, but he's in the VIP section. Can't get in there without proving your worth, and you do that by having a batleth battle with a Nausicaan bouncer. Wow, okay. Am I still in a Star Trek, or did I walk into a Star War? Once inside, Crindo sits down with Omag to try to get some information out of him. Though interestingly enough, before Crindo can really say anything in response to Omag to try to start coaxing that info, Alex just storms in and just interjects, making his move right then and there, which naturally spooks Omag. So what happens next? Well, it's time to dance. And when I say dance, I mean trading knowledge over the various rules of acquisition. It doesn't really go anywhere and goes pear-shaped fast as Omag runs away crying out, "Latinum for Federation heads!" So naturally, every unsavory character tries to blast you to Kingdom Come to reap the apparent rewards. This culminates as Omag gets to his shuttle and flies away, but not before convincing an old Klingon to hold Alex off so he's not chased. This leads to a battle whereas you essentially fight a Klingon on a Gundam. Well, okay, maybe half a Gundam. Or half one of those loaders from Aliens. Wait a minute, Cecil? Cecil, is that you? Cecil from Reboot, what happened to you? Also, I want to point out that I was afraid I had soft-locked myself at a point because I save a lot in this game. And one save had me right in the guy's crosshairs when I knocked him out of his robot thing with like 10 health. No matter what I did, I couldn't avoid fire, and I only had like the only available health terminal that was available I used up already. So did that mean I had to do it all over again from the beginning? Thankfully not, because for some reason I tried a desperation tactic of just standing in one place and frantically shooting my gun. I didn't expect that to work, but okay then. I unlock a sweet Gatling gun that the Klingon dropped, and Alex makes his way out of there. The Enterprise ends up capturing Omag before he can make his escape and hold him in the brig. Unfortunately, he wiped all relevant data from his ship, so only the Ferengi himself knows the data that we need. Alex requests to do the interrogation himself, even though he hasn't trained for it like ever. But he has a feeling that he can do it though. He's convinced that he knows enough about the rules of acquisition to coerce Omag into telling him what he needs to know. Despite a big amount of hesitance on Picard's part, which is completely and totally understandable, he agrees to let Alex take on this interrogation due to his stellar performance. His stellar performance of shooting a lot of stuff, cause surely that equals interrogation skills? I don't know. Look, all I know is that the dialogue selection mechanic is front and center in this thing, and it's up to you to choose the right rules of acquisition in order to trip up Omag into giving you the information that you need. Thankfully, even if you choose the wrong one, you can eventually get to the right one. Each round of questions gets Omag to reveal a little bit more about who his client is. A client who Omag sold the deciphered coordinates to the Master Control Facility, which he admits to in no uncertain terms, claiming that his client would never use that weapon against a Ferengi planet, which leads to Picard showing up to formally charge Omag with being an accessory to murder. The verbal war of wits is pretty clever. That is until...
You think you won, Monroe, but you have to release me. And I never told you where to find his secret base. Ha!
He has a secret base?
Ha 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 ha! Too late. So, where will you drop me off? Ferenginar? Risa?
We will release you on the next planet to be attacked by exomorphs.
No, you wouldn't!
That way you can inspect the results of your profiteering.
Those monsters don't value latinum. I'll be killed.
Isn't it the Ferengi dream to die rich?
You can't.
Goodbye, Omag.
His name is Commander Soldock. I'll give you coordinates to his base. It's located on the border of the neutral zone, just inside Romulan space.
Thank you, Omag.
Nice doing business with you.
Did Picard just threaten Omag with death? I mean, sure, it wasn't anything direct, but dropping him off on a planet that's going to be attacked by exomorphs?
Oh, wow. That's pretty cold-blooded, boss.
I mean, okay, I think this is after the events of Star Trek First Contact, so Jean-Luc is a little more abrasive, sure, but I don't know. Omag? I mean, this is a far cry from threatening him at a bar with taking away his trade routes. I mean, this is something I would expect Cisco to do.
Do you realize what you've done?
I've only just begun. I'm going to eliminate every Maquis colony in the DMZ.
You're talking about turning hundreds of thousands of people into homeless refugees.
That's right. When you attacked the Malinche, you proved one thing. That the Maquis have become an intolerable threat to the security of the Federation, and I am going to eliminate that threat.
But think about those people you saw in the caves. Huddled and starving, they didn't attack the Malinche.
You should have thought about that before you attacked a Federation starship.
Alright. Thanks to Omag spilling his guts about his customer, it's revealed that it is a Romulan commander by the name of Soldock, who has a secret base on a planet that borders the neutral zone. Monroe and Gonzalez are tasked with this mission, getting cosmetic surgery to pose as transferred Romulan soldiers using phony credentials to get in there and get the data which has location to this master control facility. While undercover in that snowy planet that reminds me a lot about that Klingon penal colony on Rura Pinthe, Alex meets up with a Romulan insider who has offered to render aid within the complex without giving up her cover, only to find out that the only way to get inside the facility is to create a diversion. A diversion that basically blows Alex's cover, because as soon as you do that, shoot the little communication beacons or whatever, all Romulan NPCs become hostile. Thankfully, once inside, you have your choice of continuing to sneak around or just going in and taking everybody out. Just keep in mind, if you do the latter, they will go for the closest alarm, and if they get to it, it will summon a good number of reinforcements. Though things become problematic when a second meetup with their informant reveals that Gonzalez has been captured. Alex insists that they include saving him as part of their plans, to which the Romulan double agent begrudgingly agrees. Needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many. We get the data, and the Romulan agent leads you straight to Gonzalez. Things become clear as the moment we get to Gonzalez, he informs Monroe that the double agent is actually a counter-double agent. She was doping us the entire time. This leads us to a boss fight where you have to fight Romulan reinforcements with the double counter agent, the counter double agent. Well, you have to fight her with she cloaks and everywhere.
This frozen hellhole is your new home, Lieutenant. Until we gain all your knowledge about speeding up the exomorph creation process.
Wait. Jeffrey Combs? Jeffrey Combs, is that you? Man, you really are everywhere in Star Trek. And this is where we find out that these aren't any old regular Romulans. This is a super secret order that's even more secret than the Tal Shiar. The Broken Crown is apparently a splinter group who desires power through controlling the exomorphs. Control that the newly revealed Romulan commander Saldak now has. Apparently, this has been all a ploy to get the Romulan government to get scared and paranoid that 2 Starfleet officers infiltrated and attacked a Romulan outpost unprovoked, despite the truth. After the whole generic villain monologuing, Monroe and Gonzalez make a play to get the tricorder that has the information that they need to get to the master control facility. But unfortunately, that leads to the loss of Ensign Gonzalez, but at least Monroe manages to escape via a comm beacon that was given at the beginning of the mission. Thankfully, it cuts through the transporter interference that the Romulans had set up, much to Commander Saldak's annoyance.
How could they beam out? You told me you had jammed their transporters.
Oh no! That was a death scream, all right. Oh, right, I almost forgot. Between certain missions, you can either visit Telsia Murphy or the alien archaeologist Clea, who has opted to stay on board the ship. Depending on who you spend the most time with, it will lead you to a romance with that character. At least I think that's what happens. I'm not even 100% sure there's an actual romance mechanic here, other than spend most time with this person, well, that's who you end up with. I think that's what it is. And here we are. Everything is laid out with this last Hazard Team briefing. The Idil were apparently very technologically advanced, way before humans, eons even. However, the invention of the exomorphs led to their destruction. About 95% of the populace, in fact. What was meant to be easy labor spelled the near destruction of their whole species, with the exception of a few survivors. Those who survived fell into a dark age of sorts. It was the Atrexians who managed to eradicate the exomorphs and destroyed the control facilities, but in turn decided to enslave the remaining Idil for labor and rewriting history so that it looks like the Idrils were always backwater and not as technologically advanced as they actually were. Unbeknownst to them, the facilities were apparently self-repairing the entire time, and then once they were fully repaired, lay dormant, waiting for someone to discover them. Our course of action? Why, we destroy the hell out of them, that's what!
Wait, so how was the master control facility destroyed initially?
Oh, well, it seems as though it was through intelligence. An exomorph called the Archaeopendra gained sentience.
Oh, okay. Is that?
Yep, that's it.
But how?
I don't know. Look, I'm right here with you, my electronic friend. Your guess is as good as mine. That's where they leave it. So the facility is well into the neutral zone on a planet called Tulacron 2. So the Enterprise is going to have to deal with a possible Romulan incursion in space as well once the Hazard Team deploys. Picard hopes to convince them of this potential threat as the team goes down to destroy the facility. How do we do that? Well, by shooting things, of course! No, seriously, there's no solid plan here beyond 2 teams assaulting the Romulan base. I don't know. Okay, so the Hazard Team beams down and...
Anti-spacecraft batteries. Our power levels are fluctuating. Sydney feels she can compensate, but we don't know for how long.
You've done all you can, Telsia. Get your team back to the Enterprise. Monroe out.
Yeah, I've been hit!
Looks bad. We need to get you out of here. Enterprise, evacuate Chell.
They will pay.
Well, Chell gets shot during a cinematic. Wait, really? Look, I know Chell isn't the beefiest member of the team, but he's been there since the first game. And he's taken damage from Borgs and Xenomorphs alike, and the guy gets taken out by a single Romulan with a rinky-dink disruptor who immediately beams out afterwards? I'm calling shenanigans on that. I mean, come on, at least write his exit out a little better. I mean, like Korban. He also gets ridden out of this level too because, you know, gotta have Alex go solo despite the name of the game. But at least in this, he actually goes down after a sniper shot, making sure Monroe doesn't get hit by it. But, bah, I say. Alright, my problem with the writing aside, you work your way through the base, dealing with loads of Broken Crown cronies and exomorphs. I feel like kind of silly because I was having a hard time here, but it's mostly because I forgot that the game does give you an aerial bombardment from the Enterprise for more high-health bosses in this level section, but I think I forgot. But I also think I deserve a pat on the back for not using it and still making it through.
Oh, good job, boss. You're a persistent moron.
Thanks, Chip. During your deluge of violence on the ground, Picard is on board the Enterprise trying to reason with some Romulans who have confronted him in regards to being, well, in the neutral zone. Now, here we go. This is what I like to see. Captain Jean-Luc Picard flexing those diplomacy muscles by reasoning with the Romulans, trying to convince them that Commander Suldok is housing a weapon on that planet that should have the Romulan Empire worried, let alone the whole Federation. The investigating Romulans agree to teleport a party down and take a look for themselves, and it doesn't take long for them to run into agents of the Broken Crown, and an excursion unfolds as a result. Alex goes even deeper into the facility, and I mean we're talking lava and rocks here, until he finally gets to Commander Suldok, who houses himself in some sort of shielded command center. It's up to you at this point to take pot shots at him while running away from various exomorphs spawning from the lava. When you defeat Romulan Commander Jeffrey Combs, you're then met with, Archaeopendra? No. Just let it slide. Let's let it slide. We'll get to it later when we're done. Finding Archaeopendra is more or less the same as dealing with Commander Combs, except the main difference here is that there's no shield. But there's a whole lot of health. And still avoiding a ton of exomorphs. But at least, just like in the last battle, you get timed boosts where you can run to and get ammunition and health periodically. After the boss is defeated, we're treated with Picard debriefing the Romulans. Seeing as how both sides sustained losses during the whole turn of events, they were willing to part ways peacefully. Picard fills them in saying that the massive bioengineered monster that Alex was just fighting was responsible for the destruction of all those Idil colonies so long ago.
Wait, wasn't that the name of...
I know. Bear with me until we're done. The Romulans depart, the Enterprise does so as well, heading to the nearest starbase. A congratulations is given by Picard and Tuvok for a job well done by Monroe and his team, and they're all granted shore leave. And depending on who you spend the most time with when choosing between Telsia and Clea, the final cinematic shows Alex and the chosen person sharing a moment together. And then the Enterprise flies off into the proverbial sunset. And that, my friends, was Star Trek Elite Force 2. And boy, it sure was a game, wasn't it? I mean, the gameplay was fun, even challenging. The weapons were vast and varied, with returning gear getting a makeover from the first game. The tricorder minigames are fun and can be a little challenging at times, what with the time constraints you get sometimes. The environments and art design is pretty crackerjack too.
But
it's the writing. It's the writing. The writing is just... I mean, I got some bones to pick with this script here. Like, okay, look. I'm not expecting a peak caliber, penmanship here. I acknowledge that it's just a game, okay? But I don't know, compared to the first game, I feel like it was a better overall narrative experience. On more than one occasion, I felt like I was playing a game with a Star Trek skin slapped on it, more so than a proper Star Trek adventure. Coupled together that the only TNG cast from the game is Patrick Stewart and Dwight Schultz, and it just leaves a sizable gap when you're spending your time serving aboard the Enterprise. Part of the appeal of any Star Trek show is the crew. The way the crew interact with each other, the synergy that exists when there's a task that needs to be done, so everyone works together to get the job done, the fun you can have while you're off duty, chilling. It's one of the reasons why I love the first Elite Force so much. I mean, yeah, there was plenty of action, but there was also plenty of downtime too, where your character helps out around the ship, interacts with important members of the crew, and you even got to delve into some more lore with the only DLC that was released, with plenty of logs to go through. And they even had some recipes. And as awesome as it is to have an adventure aboard the Enterprise and to get to be under the command of Jean-Luc Picard, I've got to say, I really felt the lack of familiar faces. It really took me out of it. Also, is it just me, or is Patrick really not feeling the script? Or is he just not getting direction when he's reading the lines?
It's a very serious charge. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Turn your ship over to me, Picard, and I'll offload you and your crew on the nearest hospitable planet.
I would sooner destroy this ship. If this mission fails, the Romulans will have a first strike weapon that can tip the balance of power in the Alpha Quadrant. Good luck.
Oh, I don't know. I just personally think it would have been great if they did something similar to Star Trek Bridge Commander. The story focusing on an original starship while having a few familiar faces crop up here and there. In fact, what's funny, and I don't know if this is in the game, when you unlock the character model secret map, because when you collect little special ships, you get to unlock special maps.
First it was Franklin, now Gonzalez. I didn't have enough time to really get to know either of them.
That's a line that Sydney says. I don't know if it made it to the final game, but, never got to know them, and before you know it, they're gone. That's how the game felt. But despite my gripes, I can't fault this game for having a solid foundation. It was fun exploring strange new worlds, blasting hostile aliens with a Klingon Gatling gun or a homing bazooka. I got my copy from GOG.com and was able to get it running after some tinkering with the INI file, so I'd recommend getting your copy there if you wanted to give this a swing. Now, can we have a Star Trek game where you work as a lower decker, maintaining the vital functions of a starship while getting to know your colleagues and maybe even the bridge crew to a degree? You might be surprised at the demand of such a thing.
All right, boss, bring it in. I think that's enough Star Trek for one sitting. Now I know why you usually don't do full-blown walkthroughs anymore.
Oh yeah, these things are beyond beefy. It's like when you order a hamburger with one patty and instead you end up with that limited edition Windows 7 Whopper that had 7 patties all stacked up in one.
That was a thing?
Yeah, that was a thing. And thank you, the viewer, for listening to me blabber on about this stuff. Knowing I'm interesting enough to watch is plenty fuel to keep me going. Just remember to hit that subscribe and bell buttons to make sure that you know when my next video comes out. And these are coming out regularly, like, baby. Or at least I'm trying to keep it that way. This is my career after all. Or at least I'm trying. Anyway, above all, remember...
Stay safe and keep on gaming.